Knight trailer came out, and oh my god, I love it.
Yes.
So I really like this poster that they put out right before the trailer came out during it was a playoff game. I forgot between which teams. It's the NFL playoffs, and that's where they debuted the trailer because Disney owns ESPN
Yeah.
and several of the stations that would be playing a playoff game. So they released this, and I really like this poster.
Not only that, but one thing I do really like about the Moon Knight costume is that it takes a lot of like it's not just like a blanket sheet. Like when I say that, like it's not like one like article of clothing, but
Yeah,
it's like an amalgamation of cloth. Like especially you see in the poster where you see like he's not wearing gloves. It looks like
yeah,
he's wearing wrappings.
yeah. It's like mummification wrappings,
Yes.
which is obviously makes sense because this is going to delve with a lot of Egyptian culture.
Hmm.
In the comics, obviously, Mark Spector, who is a mercenary, he has a mission in Egypt and he dies and he gets brought back to life by the god Khonshu. In exchange for him being brought back to life, he now is the servant of Khonshu. And I believe they're going to follow a very similar trend with this. Because we do see Khonshu in the trailer, and Khonshu looks fucking terrifying.
Yeah.
Um, I really like how Oscar Isaac seems to be playing the different characters.
Especially because, especially in Star Wars, he hasn't had much of an opportunity to show his acting chops.
Yeah,
Be-
I think his limited role in Dune actually gave us a bit more insight into his better acting chops, and he's also in Ex Machina, which I have not seen, but apparently he's really good in that as
I
well.
mean, Ex Machina is a phenomenal film, no matter what.
Yeah, you've seen Ex Machina?
Oh yeah, it's really good.
Yeah, then you've seen him in there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I haven't seen it, but I've heard he's really good. So I always had faith that the actors that showed up in the sequel trilogy were all good actors. They were just given a really shitty hand.
Yeah.
And I believe,
Because like
yeah,
when he acts in Moon Knight, he sounds nothing like how he does in Star Wars at all.
yeah.
Because he's obviously playing a more passive character.
Well,
Well, not passive, but like
he he's playing a very unique character
yeah,
because, as you know, Mark Spector, Moon Knight, has DID,
yeah,
dissociative identity disorder. And so he will be playing not just Mark Spector, but he'll be playing the various alters, being the main one that we see in this trailer being Stephen Grant.
yeah.
Now, in the comics, Stephen Grant is actually a multi-millionaire. But it looks like in this, Stephen Grant is going to be the passive alter, the one that works at the museum in London, not the same one that Dane Whitman and Cersei are at. This is a different one. But yeah,
But
Stephen seems to be the passive one. Mark seems to be the mercenary, and then Moon Knight seems to be this like
yeah,
the
because
enforcer of Khonshu.
like the main identity we see, he's like anxiety ridden. He's like Oscar Isaac's performance of it is like beyond anything we've seen from him.
Oh yeah. One thing I want to point out is the physical acting. I'm pulling up a GIF on screen right now, but just looking at the final scene is really interesting. Like the way he's punching what I'm assuming is a jackal. I don't think it's a werewolf like some people have been saying. I believe this is a jackal because we're dealing with Egyptian culture.
Yeah,
I know some people thought it was a werewolf because Moon Knight first appeared in Werewolf by Night, but Werewolf by Night is going to formally debut in October of this year during the Halloween special. So I believe this is actually a jackal he's killing.
okay.
And I really like this
And it,
scene in the trailer. It's really cool, and it really shows off the how the character looks in terms of the Moon Knight with the various different wrappings around him.
yeah, and that's like I said before. This also emphasizes the costume that I really, really like because,
Yeah,
like, of course, in the comics, a lot of costumes are simplified. You would imagine Moon Knight just having like a mask on, but no, it's like an actual like wrapping.
yeah. If you look very closely when he turns to the camera, you can see the crescent moon is actually held together by disparate pieces of cloth, really making it seem that like this is like the costume is like the cloth come to life.
Yeah,
And so I really like this. in the comics, Mark Spector, Moon Knight, very violent character. Some people are worried that the violence is going to be toned down. I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. I don't really think it is.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people were worried about it because they saw Kingpin and Hawkeye and they're like, he's not ultra violent. But I believe that was just because the setting wasn't something that would provide Kingpin to be ultra violent, especially because Kingpin doesn't have the luxury of being that in
Yeah.
Hawkeye because he's at the lowest point compared to in Daredevil where he could afford to be ultra violent because he always had a fallback.
Yeah. I don't really see like the medium it prohibiting them right now because at this point, like Marvel isn't really considered like a property for children. It's a property for families.
Yeah, and I mean, let's be honest here. Eternals had a very spicy sex scene in comparison to what we normally see in the MCU. I think we're not going to stray from the violence in this.
Yeah, well, honestly, I don't even know if I'm willing to go that far because I mean, I would not. I, from a parent's perspective, a 14 or 15-year-old could probably see that and be fine.
Well, here's the thing. You have to remember American culture. And in American culture, violence is way more acceptable to be shown to children than sex.
Yeah.
So the fact that Eternals got away with that scene leads me to believe that violence is a-okay. I mean, if we look at the poster, like his hand and the crescent moon are dripping in blood.
And blood has been uh, shown a lot more in Phase 4. I mean,
Yeah,
we got John Walker holding the shield.
yeah,
That startling scene that shook the internet.
yeah,
Yeah, that was by far definitely the biggest showing of violence in MCU history.
yeah. And I mean, if we really want to talk about the various fight scenes in No Way Home are brutal.
Oh yeah,
So I definitely think they're not gonna like truly like handicap the violence. I mean, even in the trailer we see, I mean, Mark is bleeding from the side of his head when he's in the cupcake truck. I mean, the guy that we see falling out of the truck is dripping in blood and is about to get absolutely run over by the two cars behind him, and it's not gonna be pretty.
yeah.
Um,
I think just the announcement of Blade is just making people super paranoid.
Not just Blade, but they're also afraid about Punisher returning. But I'm gonna be perfectly honest with you. Given what I've seen of the leaks for Multiverse of Madness, Marvel is not going to be straying away from blood and gore. It is not. I don't think we have anything to worry about.
Yeah,
I will eat my words when these things come out, and if it's true they handicapped it, then I'm wrong. But I really do think we're going to be fine in terms of like gory, bloody content. And plus, let's be honest here, just because something is gory or bloody doesn't mean it's better. You can tell a good story about a dark character without having to show explicit scenes of blood and guts. I mean, I think that's, in my opinion, pretty juvenile.
and sometimes just the use of it for shock value can be it can be kind of like what's the word I'm thinking of here?
Um,
Um,
Overused.
Not overused, but condescending.
It could be. Like,
Yeah,
the best thing I could think of is the Saw franchise, where in the beginning, the gore almost serviced the plot. But by the time we got later on into the franchise, the blood and the gore just seemed there to be torture porn and didn't seem to be in any way servicing the plot.
yeah,
Like, I think some people think blood and gore means good, and I just disagree. I think it's pretty juvenile if it's not in service of the plot.
yeah.
It's
Like
the same. It's the same way I feel about fan service. Fan service could work if it works in service of a plot, but most of the time it's very juvenile and it doesn't actually contribute anything in terms of character development or plot
yeah,
progression.
like for example, like for for the example of blood, like like I said before, the scene with John Walker holding up the bloody shield.
Yeah,
That works.
that works really well because it's showing that this is bad. This is blood on a symbol that is supposed to represent peace. And I say peace in quotation marks because Captain America is a very violent person and very much has done many violent things and has killed many people.
Yeah.
But it's supposed to be a symbol of peace.
And then, as far as fan service is concerned, take any example ever from anime. It's typically
It's juvenile.
it's typically handled very unseriously.
It's in my opinion, anime fan service is very juvenile. It's very degrading. It's not at all in service of the plot in any way, and it's very rare to find them to be in service of the plot.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I even wince at things like in Metal Gear Solid 5 with Quiet, how she only has where she has to have as much skin exposed so she can communicate. But even then, that felt more like a post hoc justification for having a woman just walk around with a sniper rifle and a bikini.
Yeah.
But we're getting too far away from the main thing. I think Moon Knight is going to have the appropriate amount of violence and gore for what the series will be.
Yeah.
I mean, seeing that beatdown of the Jackal, I can only imagine we're probably going to get more close-ups.
Yeah. And I do want to bring up, like, have you seen that one edit of, like, Captain America throwing someone into a building in, like, was it Age of Ultron or Civil War? Like, it was an edit of them throwing them into a building, and then the body just splattered into blood.
I have not seen it, but I believe that would have to be Civil War because in Age of Ultron, I don't think we ever see Cap throwing people into buildings.
Or he bash them into a building with his shield.
I
But
think that's either Winter Soldier or Civil War.
I think it's Civil War. But there was an edit done where, like, they made Marvel super bloody, and it just looked so bad.
Yeah, it's like it's
Like no, he threw it like with he threw him into a building, like where you just get thrown flat into a building wall,
mm,
and then the body just splatters in blood,
yeah, it's just
which of course, like, physically doesn't make any sense.
yeah. I mean, I'll say the unpopular opinion. I thought the blood that was used in the Deadpool series of movies was
I mean,
not gonna lie. I also thought it was pretty excessive and juvenile because at certain points it's just stopped servicing and became more of a punchline.
which I think it kind of services his character because his
Oh, it
character,
services his character more, but at some points I thought it was just a bit much.
like the same example where some guy gets thrown into an interstate sign, and his
That was
body.
Brad Pitt. It was Brad Pitt's character.
No. You're thinking about the one that got thrown into the electrical wires.
Brad Pitt was the one that got thrown in the electrical wires in Deadpool 2?
Yeah, he was the invisible guy, right?
Oh, yeah, because you
No,
only see his
you're
face.
thinking of the second movie. I'm thinking
Yeah.
of the first
Oh,
movie.
you're thinking of the first.
I'm thinking of the first movie where the guy gets hurled from the car into an interstate line or interstate sign, and his body completely splatters.
Oh, that's during the car scene.
Yes.
Okay, now I know which one you're talking about.
Yeah, no, that one was pretty excessive.
Yeah. But anyway, back to Moon Knight. I think it's going to be really interesting. I do like the villain. The villain, I believe his name is Arthur Harrow, which in the comics, he has only appeared in a grand total of one issue. He is
Really?
an extremely minor Moon Knight villain. In the comics, he was his name is Arthur Harrow, and he's played by Ethan Hawke, which is a great actor. And Arthur Harrow in the comics is just a Nazi scientist that wants to experiment on people to find a cure for that he's trying to like numb it. It has something to do with numbing his senses for to deal with pain, and he's just a crazy Nazi scientist, which made sense back in the day because I mean Mark Spector, alongside many superheroes, is Jewish. In fact, Mark's father is a rabbi that fled from Germany during the Holocaust. And in the comics, that's the reason why Mark becomes a mercenary, or not necessarily why he becomes a mercenary, but why he's such a great fighter, is he was disappointed in his father for running. He believed his father should have stayed and fought the Nazis. So Mark becomes a boxing champion. He joins the Marine Corps. He joins Force Recon. He becomes a CIA agent.
I mean,
He then becomes a mercenary.
not exactly the most logical motivation, but he made it work.
Listen, it was the comics, it was old. And let's be honest here, it kind of makes sense in my opinion. Some people probably would feel that way.
I mean, it's like from an internal perspective, yeah, it makes sense. I'm just It was probably a decision made in his early childhood. I'll say that much.
Yeah. And so that's what we get. So Arthur Harrow in this is going to be really interesting because they're basically going to be it's basically going to be a brand new character. I mean, Arthur Harrow's only appeared in one issue. So the actor Ethan Hawke based him off of David Koresh of the Branch Davidians. I presume you know about them, Waco,
Mhm.
Texas.
No.
Oh boy! Branch Davidians were a cult, a very popular cult. They had a lot of guns, like a lot of guns. And they tried to get a tank, and they were an uber Christian where basically David Koresh was believed to be like the next like Messiah, standard cult shit, but there was a lot of child abuse of every variety by many of the adults. And so the ATF came in, botched the situation, and burned the whole thing to the ground, killing many people. It was
Huh.
bad. Mind you, I'm not one of those people that think, oh my god, the Branch Davidians did nothing wrong. If you say that, you're a fucking idiot. They were a cult and they were abusing children and they deserve to get shut down. But I also don't think the ATF should have handled it the way that it did, because while they did get a sizable amount of children out of there, David Koresh and several families that were still inside the compound burned to death because they loaded the place up with tear gas and then shot live munitions in there, and it ended up setting off fires.
Yeah. Not not the best plan.
Not the best fans from our illustrious federal government.
But getting back on topic, we have gotten
Arthur
into.
Maurer will be playing a David Koresh-esque character. And so we see that in Moon Knight when the scene in Germany happens where he has his characters, he has all of his followers kneel willingly, which I believe was purposely to juxtapose Loki making the Germans kneel unwillingly in the Avengers.
Hmm. Yeah, it's a pretty interesting comparison now that you make it.
We also see from the Disney Plus Day trailer that Mark Spector will come out as an alter fighting the guards in Germany before Stephen Grant's alter comes back into main consciousness, and he's very surprised before he gets attacked by the armed guards that we see in this trailer, which will then cause Mark Spector to come out, steal the cupcake truck, and at some point,
See,
Stephen Grant will come
so
back.
this is something I have to bring up because I'm hearing all of these ideas and they're all amazing. I do like them, but in the back of my mind, I'm still expecting disappointment from these villains, just because. Like I said before,
Marvel's villain
Spider
sucks.
Marvel's villain sucks, and Spider-Man: No Way Home put the standard up so high. It didn't just break the standard; it shot through and escalated up to the heavens.
Which, to be fair, wasn't hard.
It wasn't difficult at all. Like you just had Willem Dafoe just come back on set, be Green Goblin, be his former self, and
I
like
think this has the potential because I think they're also
like
go.
I'm hearing all of everything you're saying,
Yeah,
and these are all great ideas. The inspiration for the character is good. Plenty of room to expand the character since there's only been one issue with him in it. Definitely a lot of room to create a lot of new elements.
yeah.
But at the same time, I'm like, is there room at all to really top anything we've seen from Green Goblin, from Thanos, from Killmonger, from Loki, from Zemo,
You're forgetting the best one, Purple Man.
and from Kilgrave? You're right.
So I do think we have the potential because since Arthur Morrow has only appeared in not Morrow Harrow. Let me say that name again. It is Arthur Harrow, correct? Since he's basically a blank slate of a character, they have a lot to work with. And I think it will be interesting dealing with a cult leader because it's not just going to be a random cult. This is going to be one involving gods. I
Yeah.
think they're going to pull inspiration from the Moon Knight villain Sun King. And I think this is going to be because we see in the trailer that Arthur, when he talks to Stephen, says you have a lot of chaos inside you, meaning he probably can see that there is something mystical about
Yeah,
Stephen slash
and
Mark. And that may be how the cult works, is a very mystical cult, where we may see someone that's very depraved, or maybe even he is not the villain, he is the avatar for the villain, which is another Egyptian god.
yeah,
This
like
one being, I believe, Ra.
yeah, like there's definitely a lot of room to improve. You're right, but especially with like it being a whole show dedicated to him, just that rather than just one issue.
Yeah.
So I am definitely, because I'm liking what I'm hearing. I'm definitely going to keep my hopes up, but they are very tempered.
Yeah, but we'll see. We'll definitely see. I definitely think that with the cast that we have, it may work. Another thing is that so if you have subtitles on at the end of the trailer, when the woman calls and says like, "I thought you were dead, Mark. Like, what's wrong with you?" That is cited as a woman named Layla. Now, in the comics, there's only one particularly important Layla, and that is a mutant that was created during the House of M story arc, who could resurrect someone from the dead at the cost of their soul. And she helped bring back the memories of many of the Avengers and X-Men who lost their memories when Wanda went crazy and basically rewrote reality trying to get her kids back. So potentially, this Layla character, if she's supposed to be Layla Miller from the comics, may end up getting mutant powers as a result of whatever happens in Multiverse of Madness.
Yeah.
So there's that. Do you think any other characters from a other show will show up?
I don't know if there's much potential for it. I mean,
It'd either be like Black Knight or Blade, because Midnight
maybe
Suns.
maybe Blade, but I don't think that. See, I don't think this will be like Hawkeye, where we've got like so many cameos, because
Oh yeah, I don't think this will be cameo heavy.
yeah, like when I'm thinking like realistically in this part of the MCU,
I think it's Blade or Black Knight.
yeah, we're not really going to be seeing a lot of cameos until we get to the sequels that are coming out, such as Doctor Strange, Thor, and Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah,
Like we're pretty much back into phase one right now
yeah,
because we're getting a whole bunch of origins for a bunch of new characters, and we don't really have an overarching villain established yet. So
yeah. I think we're just gonna have different versions of like the Nick Fury. So like, in my opinion, in America, we're gonna have Matt Murdock be the Nick Fury for them. I think in the Europe side, we're gonna have it be
Blade,
Blade. I
yeah,
believe in the cosmic side is probably going to be Captain Marvel. For the mystical side, it's probably going to be Wong.
yeah,
And I believe those are like the four main ones, the four main sides. The European, we have the American street level government side, the European mystical magical side, not like mystical side, but not magical in the same way that Wong is magical.
yeah,
And then we have Cosmic, which will probably be Captain Marvel.
yeah.
So
Yeah, pretty much think of like that scene from Endgame with everybody communicating.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then I do want to bring up one thing. Tragically, the actor Gaspard I don't know how to pronounce his name, Gaspard Ulilil, who will be playing the character Anton Mogart slash Midnight Man in Moon Knight, tragically passed away this morning in a skiing accident that happened in the Alps. He was in a skiing accident and he was rushed to the hospital where unfortunately he passed away. So
We
Moon
do.
Knight will be his last performance, unfortunately. So I think we should have a moment of silence for him because he died pretty young. I believe he died at the age of 38.
Yeah, it was 38. So
So let's have a moment of silence. Yeah.
okay, yeah, it's
So
very depressing news for sure, especially because
he's so young.
and also like so unexpectedly. Yeah,
Yeah, it was a skiing accident. I mean, it's just really sad. He played Hannibal. So and apparently he was really good at that. So it just really sucks.
Yeah,
He was a young actor.
especially for someone whose performance we haven't seen yet.
Yeah,
So it's going to carry a little bit more weight.
yeah.
Well, any final thoughts that you want to give for Moon Knight before we move on?
I'm excited for it. I think it'll be really interesting to tap into this side of Marvel. Um, I just really like what I'm seeing, and I kind of can't wait to see just the Egyptian gods be shown. And like, you know how we have like Asgard, where they're kind of shown as just very human, but then we see like the Celestials as very abstract.
Yeah.
I want to see these gods as like horrific figures.
Yeah, because like it's hinted that like they aren't even like in agents of Shield, even though this isn't really carried out throughout the rest of the MCU. Like it's implied that they aren't really gods; we just call them gods.
Yeah,
But with the Egyptian gods, like they could they could be like a different nightmare.
yeah.
Yeah,
So that's going to be really
like
interesting.
because like Greek and Nordic mythology is completely different.
Yeah, than
So
Egyptian.
than Egyptian mythology. So who knows what could happen because
Yeah,
especially with all of like all of the Egyptian gods potentially just having people as their avatars.
mhm,
Who knows what could happen?
yeah.
But I
Our,
think
our next segment.